Green.
Yeah. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this clinical discussion on a case of a left hypochondriac mass that we saw recently. Ajit, our final year exam taking student, is going to present the case. Over to you, Ajit. What he will do is give the clinical picture, and then when we come to the discussion on the blood reports and the radiology, I will show some CT pictures. Okay. Yeah. Go ahead, Ajit.
Good evening, sir. Good evening, everyone. So today we are going to have a case discussion, mass in left hypochondria. So our patient is a 33-year-old gentleman who is educated up to 10th standard and resident of Orissa, currently working as a security professional in Bangalore. He has come to us with chief complaints of left upper abdominal pain. So history of present illness. The patient was apparently all right 1 month ago when he developed left upper abdominal pain, which was insidious in onset, dull aching and continuous pain, which increases in severity during deep breathing and also radiates to the back. The pain is more during the night and disturbs his sleep. Negative history. There is no history of vomiting or early satiety, yellowish discoloration of eyes, urine, or epistaxis. No history of fever, loss of weight, loss of appetite. That is constitutional symptoms. No history of hematuria, bone pain, or history of other swellings in the body. There is no history of altered bowel or bladder habits. He has no history of similar complaints in the past and has no comorbidities. He had in past medical history, he had no major illnesses in the past and has not undergone any surgical interventions. The patient has no known drug allergy and no food allergy. He is not on any medications prior to admission. There is no history of malignancy in the family. Personal history, he consumes a mixed diet, takes alcohol occasionally, like once in 2 months. He does not smoke. The sleep is just disturbed because of the pain. Bowel and bladder habits are normal. So summarizing the history, a 33-year-old gentleman with no comorbidities, with complaints of dull aching pain in the left upper abdomen, with no history of vomiting, jaundice, or constitutional symptoms, and no history of similar complaints in the past.
All right. Can I stop you there?
Yes.
Who are the first years in the group, please? Can you just volunteer yourselves? First years in the group?
Yes, sir.
Sorry?
Indraja, sir.
Indraja. Who else? From outside Sagar? Second years?
Sir, Hari here, sir.
Outside Sagar? Nobody wants to volunteer. We want to expand this to include all institutions and give you a sense of belonging and participation. So I know my Sagar guys, but I need people from outside Sagar to kindly volunteer. All right. Please think about it and then volunteer as the session goes on. Indraja,
Yes, sir.
are you happy with the history that is given to you, or if there's something else that you would like to know?
I think sir covered the history, sir.
You're happy with the history. So just by the history, what do you think is involved here? What are the systems that you think are probably involved here?
So patient is complaining of pain on the left
We know
side.
that. Based on the history, just
Yes.
what are it could be a very wide area of thought process. Even examination is not over, and I realize that. but I'm taking you through the steps of what happens when you're examining a patient as a surgeon. He comes to you with left upper quadrant pain. So what are the things that go through your mind? Because based on that, you will focus your examination.
So, any pancreatitis pain, sir,
Pancreatic pain, okay.
or gastritis,
Okay.
yes,
Stomach pain, okay.
and pseudocyst of the pancreas will also.
You
cause
said pancreatic, I agreed. You said stomach, I agreed. What else? Hari?
Sir, first two things I think about is spleen and kidney, sir.
Okay.
Any splenic
Good.
enlargement.
Yeah, understood. Understood. At this stage, you can't be more specific. Yeah, spleen or kidney, yes.
Kidney, left lobe of liver. I mean, liver.
All right. Okay.
And,
Agreed.
splenic flexure of colon.
Yes. Good. Good.
Then stomach.
Stomach, pancreas, tail of the pancreas,
Tail of pancreas.
retroperitoneum.
Yes.
I understand it's a huge differentials, but it becomes significant when your mind thinks on those lines. Then you start about asking other things. So one of the things that I thought he should have covered in greater detail was that he said the pain is felt in the back. Is that enough for you to know about that? There must be a lot more details of that.
Radiation of pain, sir.
Yes. Where to? Is it to the shoulder? Is it to the interscapular area? Is it lower down? Ajit, do you want to add now that you have got a hint?
No, sir. He was telling from the front side, it radiates to the back.
Yes.
Yes.
But where to the back? What is it that makes him do that? Yeah. You understand what I'm saying? You should have told me
Yes,
whether it is,
yes.
yeah, what part of the back, upper, middle, lower part? Does movement make it worse? Is there something in the spine that is causing him trouble? So you really need to give us a little more detail about the pain that you mentioned about.
Yes.
All right. And when you have, I know that there was a, what I call a Sanjeevani syndrome where everything was said, bowel, everything was normal. But when you present a history, I would like you to tell the examiners and tell, when I say examiners, it's actually yourself because you're examined every day you see a patient.
Yes.
It must be focused even in your history reporting to yourself and to the examiner. It must be focused. So depending on these things that we did you ask about relationship of the pain to eating?
Sir, I asked, sir. He said.
What did you report it to us or did I miss it?
No, sir.
Yeah. So you should report it to us.
Yes.
It's very important that it is nothing to do with eating.
Yes.
Has it anything to do with movement?
Yes, sir. On during sleeping, I have mentioned that, sir. On sleeping, that is lying down position. The
lying down position.
Pain will be more.
All right. Okay. And when you're talking about the bowel habits, normal bowel habits, you said very clearly. But when you are thinking about something in the splenic flexure of the colon, for example, what else would you add to that in particular? Important negative history has to be given. Even if you didn't give it up front, as an examiner, if I ask you, what are the important negative bowel history that you would ask for, what would you say?
Sir, constipation.
All right.
Bleeding.
Yes.
Bleeding. The bleeding part.
Why are you hesitating so much?
Yes.
It could be either constipation or diarrhea, excessive production of mucus or blood.
Yes.
Yeah. So these are the things to be added.
Yes.
And
Dr. Rajgopal, sir, would you like to come in?
Yeah, just only nothing much. You have already done a detailed analysis. For the sake of postgraduates, there is a very vital point which he has told in the history that pain, I think the slide is there, pain increases on taking deep breathing. Somewhere I saw that.
Yes, he did report that. Yeah.
So that is an important point to say that there is something connected to the diaphragm in the sense close to the diaphragm. So in this scenario, this type of a dull aching continuous pain means put in mind definitely the spleen undoubtedly first. Tail of the pancreas, definite bet because of pain radiating to the back also,
Yes.
and left lobe of the liver rather than stomach and kidney
Hold on.
at this stage. Yeah.
Fair enough.
Dull aching
Fair.
pain arises usually from the solid viscous when the parietal peritoneum gets stretched. So the enlargement of that organ is responsible for this. Since fever is not there, so it probably rules out the inflammatory pathology. At the same time, I would have appreciated, instead of trying to tell vomiting, his patient is 33-year-old, young,
Yes.
alcoholic, whatever, 2 months once he has told. I think one other thing we appreciate is if you say no hematemesis rather than
Yes.
telling no vomiting, because that is important here, because will also indirectly reflects you are thinking in terms of also portal hypertension.
Yes.
Keeping that in mind. These are my few comments. Thank you.
Very nice. Very nice. Thank you. Ravi?
So I think Shivram had made a comment in the thing.
Yeah.
There is no need to write negative history as a heading. I don't think that is required. I think if
Yeah.
it just says, but otherwise you have covered everything. Sir.
Yeah. Gabriel, you have something to say?
I joined in when the summary of history was being discussed.
Okay.
I think, yeah, what I just wanted to say is with all these complaints, when you ask them what you think of,
Yeah.
I think candidates have to think of all the anatomical structures there,
That is.
as you rightly said it, okay? Because I think they missed out on colon. The girl missed out on colon. But otherwise, she came out with all the organs which are there, and then, try to analyze the history, and then, make a anatomical diagnosis first. And then, once examination is done, and then you can pin down to a differential diagnosis.
Yeah.
That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Dr. Nuli asks, what is the difference between a referred pain and a radiation pain?
Sir, pain radiating, it will be from one place to another with the pain in the original place also, whereas a referred pain can be at away site also, away site because of the common nerve supply, like irritation of diaphragm will cause shoulder pain. So that will anatomically different structures, but there is pain referred. While in radiating, there is in the continuity.
The key word there is continuity.
Yes.
You are feeling the pain in continuity. It goes from the front to the back.
Yes.
Whereas the referred pain is discontinuous because it is a neurological phenomenon. Okay. All right. Please go ahead with the examination.
Physical examination. The patient was examined in well-lit room in sitting and lying down position after taking verbal consent. On general inspection, he was well hydrated, thin built, and fairly nourished. Karnofsky performance status is 80%. His vitals were BP 130 by 80. He was afebrile. Pulse rate 80 beats per minute. Good volume, regular. Respiratory rate 16 breaths per minute. There is no pallor, icterus, clubbing, cyanosis, lymphadenopathy, or edema. Sir, there were no signs of liver cell failure, hepatocellular failure. Sir. In local examination, per abdomen inspection, the abdomen is flat. Fullness is noted in the left hypochondrium, and all four quadrants move with respiration. The umbilicus is centrally located and inverted. There are no surgical scars, no dilated veins, no visible peristalsis, no discoloration of the skin, and no visible cough impulse. Genitalia normal. On palpation, the abdomen is soft, no local rise of temperature.
Just wait there, Ajit. Indraja, any of the first years other than Sagar volunteering? Nobody volunteering. Second years? Nobody volunteering. All right, Indraja.
Yes, sir.
He talked about a fullness in the left hypochondrium. Which position would you be appreciating this fullness the best?
Sir, lateral position, sir.
Patient in lateral position?
Yes, sir.
Why would you think you will see it better?
Sir, I'm not sure.
All right, think about it logically. If the patient is supine, I put it to you, it is supine.
Yes,
But that you have to be elsewhere, not standing next to him or not standing, like we normally do to the patient's right. What position can you take where you can appreciate it better yourself? Ajit,
Sir, at the bed end, sir, at the
foot end of the bed,
foot end, yeah.
a distance from where you are. Any
Yes,
other
sir.
place where you can appreciate it better than the standing over the patient?
Sitting, sir, in line.
Yes, in line at the, with your eye at the level of the surface of the abdomen. If you look at it tangentially, that's the word they use.
Yes, sir.
Knee elbow is somebody says, no, it's not really, not really required. You
not-
want to
not
really do,
done.
not,
Yes.
yeah, it's not done and it's not really appreciated also. Yeah, can abdomen be flat and fullness at the same time? Dr. Ramakrishna asks.
Sir, can I answer, sir?
Yes, yes.
Yes, sir. Sir, the fullness is not like very evident, sir. Mild fullness is there.
No,
So
the
I
correct
think,
answer is,
Yes.
if you look at the general demeanor of the abdomen, it is flat.
yes, sir.
But there is a localized area which is a little more prominent than elsewhere, and that is why I called it fullness in the left hypochondrium.
Okay, sir.
Okay, the general demeanor is flat.
Yes,
It's
sir.
not globular and universal enlargement like you would find in a large ovarian cyst or a gross ascites or something like that. That is the answer
Yes,
that you
sir.
give for that. Yeah.
Yes.
Any comments on that from the other seniors? Gabriel, Rajgopal, Chennai?
Nothing, sir, nothing. It's okay.
Okay, please go ahead. Yeah, inspection is done. Okay, go on.
I disturb.
Only just mention that don't say all four quadrants, something you was mentioned. Just say
Yes.
correspondingly they move equally with respiration. You don't have to only say four there. Okay.
Okay,
Then
sir.
we are
Okay.
actually comparing the left versus right like that. So it's a correspondingly equal with the respiration.
Okay, sir.
And one more thing is you have said no visible cough impulse. Just say hernial orifices are normal. Because visible cough impulse can be anywhere. Patient would have undergone a surgery or umbilical hernia might be there without surgery. Okay, so just hernial orifices are normal. Or, you can say no visible cough impulse at the hernial orifices.
Hernial orifice.
And genitalia is normal.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Right. Yeah.
So on palpation, the abdomen is soft. There is no local rise of temperature, no tenderness. There is a mass palpable in the left hypochondrium extending to 10 centimeter below the costal margin in mid-clavicular line. The lower border is 10 centimeter above the umbilicus. The upper border cannot be palpated. The mass is non-tender, firm with smooth surface and rounded margins. It moves with respirations and fingers cannot be insinuated between the mass and the costal margin. The swelling is intra-abdominal.
Hari? Hari,
sir.
are you there?
Yes, sir.
What are the tests that you do to make sure that this mass is intra-abdominal?
Sir, for putting the muscle in tension, sir, like raising the leg raising.
No, this is where you have to use your discretion. This is an upper abdominal mass. Are you there? Hari, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, upper abdominal mass.
Yes.
Between putting the upper abdominal muscles, that is neck raising or head raising, and leg raising, what would you prefer?
Sir, moves with respiration is.
No, I'm asked a specific question. Between
raising.
head raising
Head
and
raising.
leg raising, which would you prefer?
Head raising, sir. If upper.
You did not mention that first.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, please think, and it must be cool and calculated and logical. So one is that the mass becomes less prominent when you raise your head in this case. And anything else? Ajit, what did you do?
Sir, head raising test. Sir.
Okay. Anything else?
No, sir, I did only this.
If the muscle is very taut, would you appreciate the movement as well as when the muscle is soft? Answer me.
No, sir. No, sir.
No.
If it
So-
is taut, will not.
Yeah. So when the same head raising, if you look for the movement also, I'm not saying it will be, but it may be not as well appreciated as when the patient is relaxed. These are the
Yes.
two things which tell you that it is intra-abdominal. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Ravi Shankar, you have anything to say?
No, sir.
No. Okay. Please go ahead.
Now the mass
Yes, sir.
Go on,
is
go on.
going towards the umbilicus or towards the right iliac fossa or towards the left iliac fossa?
Sir, towards the umbilicus it is going, sir. Right, towards the right iliac fossa.
Okay. Have you felt a notch?
Sir, I could not feel the notch, sir, but the margins were rounded, but notch I could not feel. Sir.
What about movement with, you said it moves with
Yes.
respiration. Okay.
He said
Okay.
that, he said
Okay.
Sir,
Okay.
sir, about notch, I wanted to ask, sir, in books they mentioned that only 25% of the times it is felt. So,
I think you
Yes.
should, if you feel it, you should mention it. If you don't feel it, I don't think you should say, I didn't feel a notch.
okay, sir.
So I'll listen, Dr. Rajgopal Shai, what does he say? I don't know. But if you feel a notch, you should definitely mention it. If you don't, I don't think you should say, I didn't feel a notch. I don't know.
Correct. Correct. I think so.
Okay.
Obviously, at this stage, examiners will definitely ask you, have you felt a notch? So get ready with that answer. Yes, definitely they will ask you. But one other thing is that since say Gabriel asked you, because you have not really mentioned the extent, which are the areas which is in the left hypochondrium, you said.
Yes,
You
sir.
also need to mention your dimension 10 centimeter.
Yes.
Remember, the smallest quadrant in the abdomen is hypochondrium.
Hypochondrium. Yes, sir.
So please remember, hypochondrium is the very smallest one. So invariably, this diameter mass, I expect it to go to definitely epigastrium.
Epigastrium. Yes, sir. And this
Part
percussion,
of,
sir.
part of the no. Part of the no percussion. I just want you to mention palpation only.
Okay.
So
Sir.
you need to mention that mass is palpable in the left hypochondrium, extending to, according to me, because I have not palpated obviously, but looks like it has to go to epigastrium, umbilical region, and even maybe lumbar region. Because
Absolutely right. Absolutely
to
right.
say 10 centimeter, it has to go like that. And
Yes.
very important question Gabriel asked you, direction. In this patient, it's equally very important because you would not spleen or kidney. So
Yes.
generally, kidney enlarges in a up and down direction.
Upper. Yes.
Spleen
And-
generally, splenic axis. What is the splenic axis means? Can you tell me anatomical correlation of that? What is splenic axis means? Hari, no? Hari.
No, sir.
Ajit-
I don't know,
Ajit
sir.
is
Splenic
looking.
axis.
Hey, what is, you know how the spleen, what is the anatomical relationship of spleen? You have not heard that 1, 3, 5, 7, 9.
Yes, yes, sir. Yes. So that is 1 inch width, sir. 3 inch breadth. Then 7 to 9 ribs and 9 to 11 centimeter.
Now imagine the
Uh,
splenic axis, how the spleen is lying there between that 7 and 9th ribs. So
Yes.
that is how the direction it enlarges towards the right iliac fossa. So
Okay.
that is why this is important question, no?
Yes.
9th and 11th ribs, correct? So
Yes.
that is how it is. Yes, okay. Please go.
Ajit, one important thing you missed out. It was already
sir.
mentioned about, it is not just left hypochondrium. It is occupying a much larger area.
Yes. Sir.
And also you have given us only one dimension. It is a substantial mass.
Yes.
So in a longitudinal oblique direction, it's probably 10 centimeters.
Yes.
What about a transverse oblique direction? That dimension has to be given.
Yes, sir. 15 centimeters, sir. Actually, I
Yeah.
had measured. Yeah.
Yeah, so you need to give that dimension. Okay, any substantial mass, unless it is a globular or a spherical mass, where you must mention that it is, say, X centimeters diameter. Okay, most of them will be oblong masses or irregular masses. So in an oblong mass, you will give the transverse and the longitudinal dimensions. It may be oblique, it need not be straight. And in an irregular mass, you will give the largest dimension, transverse and,
Yes.
and longitudinal, the largest
Yes, sir.
dimension. So you need to mention the dimension.
Yes.
All right. Okay.
Yes.
Now, is it bimanually palpable or is it
Sir,
ballotable?
no, sir. It is not bimanually palpable nor ballotable, sir.
That
What
has
do you
not
mean
been
by-
mentioned here, right?
Sir, yeah, yes, sir. Bimanual palpation means one hand above the lumbar. It is usually done for kidney, sir. One hand above and one hand below the abdomen. And if we push from one side, we can feel the mass at the other for the other hands.
So that is what? Bimanually or ballotability?
Sir, the method is bimanual. The method is bimanual palpation, and the property is ballotability, sir.
That brings us to one of our favorite questions, which our teachers used to ask. If a mass is not bimanually palpable, would you do ballotability?
No, sir.
No.
No.
That's the answer. So the first requirement is that it must be by, your answer to Gabriel's question may not be very satisfactory. Okay.
I am not happy.
Yeah.
I have not understood what he said.
Correct. So what you have to say is, when you press from behind, constant pressure, mind you, and palpate from the top, you will see it with both hands. You will feel the fullness with both hands. That is bimanual palpation. And if you give a jerky movement from behind, without any pressure from the top, if the mass moves up, as it were, jumps up a little bit and then comes and touches your anterior hand, that is ballotable.
Okay.
Is that a satisfactory answer, Gabriel? Or should it be even better?
I think so, sir. And Dr. Nishant has made a comment there. I think that's
Yeah.
quite valid.
Yeah.
And whenever questions are asked, don't offer more information. Don't say it's for kidney. The examiner will ask you.
Correct.
You say a lump. Okay,
Yeah.
what is a lump? I mean, whether the lump is bimanually palpable or ballotable. Then the examiner will ask you, what is it? Will it be a spleen or will it be a kidney? Will it be colon? Something they'll ask you. So, then you can always answer. Don't offer, more information
Okay.
or extra information.
For our examiners, MS examiners, is ballotability pathognomonic of a kidney mass? Rajgopal.
Sir,
Gabriel.
yeah, just to, a mass which is in the lumbar region, if it is ballotable, definitely we can call it as a pathognomonic of kidney. There is only one another organ sometimes can give rise to ballotability, are the ascending colon and descending colon, large
descending.
tumors such as
Yes.
GIST.
Yes.
Just
Other thing
large
is-
tumors.
Yeah,
So
other
that is the only other, because otherwise there is no other clinical diagnosis. If there is a bimanual, ballotability is there, generally you should give a diagnosis of kidney. And if there are symptoms of GI symptoms, because there's the only other organ which occurs in that area.
Yeah.
That's my opinion.
All right. Agreed.
So just we have to answer, sir, for other masses which are ballotable.
Yeah, sure. Okay. That
Other thing is,
everywhere. It is.
Other thing is left-sided colonic malignancies are stenosing.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can have plenty of stool over there, okay, proximally.
Yeah.
But then remember, they in thin patients, in emaciated patients, you might be having these clinical findings, but sometimes, you will have, a sign of indentation present there. So that could tell you that it is a, ball of stool sitting over there
Yes.
above the malignancy.
Yes.
But these swellings you can get above the swelling. You can insinuate the finger between the
Yes.
and swelling.
Yes.
Correct. Go on, Ajit. Ajit, please go on.
Yes.
Yeah.
There is no hepatomegaly. Kidneys are not palpable. A small umbilical defect of 1 centimeter noted with positive cuff impulse. Other hernial orifices are free. The back is normal. There is no bony tenderness. Per rectal examination was done, which was normal.
Okay.
Ajit,
Why did
at this stage of palpation, I mean, it's fine for me, but don't mention kidneys are not palpable. See, just say no other mass is palpable, because examiners will definitely ask you so that whatever answers you know. So if you say kidneys are not palpable, it means little different from if you say no other mass. So at the end, the examiner asks you what is that other mass which you were looking for? Kidney. Okay, then what is the difference in that? I hope you understood my point.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I got it. Sir,
what do you mean by back is normal? You said back is normal means what?
Sir, sometimes in TB we can get that gibbous, sir. There will be little protrusion and there will be bony tenderness.
See, that is examination of the spine. Okay.
Yes.
When you said back is normal means what? What is important here?
Sir,
have you examined the renal angles?
Yes, sir. Renal angles are normal.
No. You might have done it. See, unless until you put it on paper, how will the examiner know? He will not know.
Yes,
Okay. So you have to clearly mention, even on inspection, for that matter, you have to make, if the patient can sit up. Okay. So you have to mention that, which you didn't mention. So make the patient sit up and look for the bilateral renal angles.
Yes.
Also, here in palpation, it's important whether there is any fullness over there.
Yes.
Okay, then you talk about the spine and all later. Yeah, if it is there, if gibbous is there, if there's anything is there on in the line of the spine, you mention that. But I think renal angles have to be mentioned.
Yes.
What does Dr. Lakshman feel?
Completely agree. The back and the scrotum are an essential part of abdominal examination. So in inspection, in palpation, in every area, you must make a specific mention of these areas. Yeah. Please go on.
Percussion dullness was noted.
Before that, just go back to your previous slide.
Yeah.
Why did you do a rectal examination here?
Sir, to rule out rectal bleeding, sir.
No, correct.
Yes.
No. You are still in palpation, right?
Yes, sir.
Where will you do a rectal examination? So that means you do a rectal examination, remove your gloves and do the percussion again. Is that?
No, sir. At the last, I did the rectal examination.
Then why did you mention it here?
Sir,
in
they say
palpation?
that. Sir, they say that we should write in the abdominal examination only rectal.
Yeah, you have not yet finished, no? Your inspection done, palpation done. Now you are going to percussion, auscultation, then rectal examination. According to me, I don't know. Is that the norm now? I don't know.
I would actually agree with you, Gabriel. I think, yeah, Ajit, I think it's reasonable to put it at the end. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, another pedantic question. Okay, is it okay to say hernial orifices is free, as if they are bound by something?
Ravi.
No. Okay. So should you say hernial orifices are normal rather than free? It's a small point, but I don't know whether it is acceptable. That's why I asked.
Yeah.
This is all English language. Huh?
Right.
Some people say it's free. Some people, yeah.
Go ahead, Ajit. Yeah.
Okay. And percussion dullness was noted over the mass, continuous with the splenic dullness extending from 8th intercostal space to 10 centimeter from the costal margin. There is no shifting dullness. On auscultation, normal peristaltic sounds were heard. There is no splenic or hepatic rub. Systemic examination was normal.
Hold on. Go back. What do you mean by dullness continuous with the splenic dullness means?
Sir, the anatomical from there splenic, where we expect the splenic dullness to be there, So if we consider this mass as another mass, it is continuous with the splenic mass. So
You mean to say that you're convinced that this is the spleen?
yes, sir.
No. You should mention whether there is any resonant below
Yes,
the.
sir. Bowel in front of.
You should mention.
Resonant
You should not tell continuous with splenic dullness.
See, normally you don't see splenic dullness at all because spleen is not palpable normally. So
You
there is
should
nothing
say
called
whether
splenic dullness.
there is continuous dullness of the entire mass or whether there is any intervening resonance there. That's what you should mention.
Did you get that, Ajit?
Yes, sir.
Just say that there is dullness right down from the 8th intercostal space to 10 centimeters below the costal
To the
margin.
lower margin of the mass.
There is no intervening area of resonance.
Okay, sir.
All right.
What is this shifting dullness you have said?
Sir, for ascites, sir, if we are suspecting portal hypertension.
You should tell us there is no free fluid anta. Then you
You have to say, see, this is very important what sir has said. Don't say portal hypertension. Don't offer diagnosis and findings of those diagnoses. Okay. And
Okay,
don't try to fit in your findings into diagnosis. Very important.
Okay,
What
sir.
is there? Or you say there is no free fluid in the abdomen. And so
Okay,
there
sir.
is no shifting dullness. That's what you have to say.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
then they will ask whether which left hypochondriac mass you get shifting dullness.
Okay, go on, Ajit.
In auscultation, you said no splenic and hepatic. Why did you bring in hepatic rub?
Hepatic rub here.
Sir,
Hmm?
case of hepatitis, sir.
No. Does he have any findings?
No fine.
Then so don't bring in all this in because they can ask you. See, the whole thing can deviate. Remember
Yes.
something. You have to lead the examiner.
Yes.
Okay. So if you bring up these hepatic rubs, he'll ask you what is hepatic rub, what condition it is found, when will you get it? So yeah. So you'll totally derail. So don't bring in whatever is not there.
Okay, sir.
Okay. No, splenic rub is fine. Probably because you're thinking this is spleen. Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Yeah. Dr. Nishan says, I think don't say
We have
hepatic
covered
rub,
it, yeah.
bruit. Okay. Yes, you can say that.
Okay, sir.
Ajit,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
just for any knowledge purpose, have you heard of drop space?
Yes, sir. Drop space.
Can you just tell me quickly where exactly you percuss in the drop space?
Sir, from the 9th rib, sir.
What are the boundaries of the drop space?
Sir, mid-axillary line. Yes, mid-axillary line, laterally, inferiorly coastal margin,
Correct.
and above 9th rib, sir. In the hips.
Not ninth, sixth rib. Okay.
Oh, okay, sir.
So
If-
normal. Why it is resonant?
Because, sir, normally when the spleen is not enlarged, lung will cover that area, sir. But when splenomegaly happens, the
Stomach. 1 minute. Stomach.
Yes.
Stomach. It is a resonance because of the stomach. So when the spleen is grossly enlarged, it displaces. This point may help you in cases of a doubt when you have between the spleen and the kidney. Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. May not be in this patient. So when you have a doubt, so
Yes.
they may ask you, just get ready. One is as far as the drop space, one is exactly the percussion you need to know. Second thing is just palpable spleen. Sometimes put the patient on the right lateral position so that you can palpate better, because small spleen sometimes you will miss it.
Hooking method, sir. Hooking method.
So that another thing is putting a little bit of a small bag like thing shoulder, under the costal margin, so that lifts up the space, so that examination becomes better. These are some small methods they may ask you how to make the spleen more palpable. And there are 2-finger method also. I mean, two hand palpation for the spleen.
Yes.
Understand?
Deep palpations.
Just need to
Dipping method.
Okay, all right.
There is a question. Would you auscultate in the renal angles also? Nuli sir, you want to come in and say what you have to say? Dr. Nuli? Doesn't seem to be there, some problem. Is the spleen palpated in sitting position also? Dr. Ramakrishna asks. What did you have in mind, Ramakrishna, when you?
Sir, there are different methods of palpating the spleen. One is right lateral position and all, and Dr. Shania was
Deep
explaining.
palpation, yes, yes.
And palpating in sitting position is also one of the methods.
Okay.
We were taught like that because it is falling down. It is felt better in sitting position.
All right. Okay, yeah.
Whenever the masses, you have any doubt, for example, including the stomach sometimes, these are all very early lesions, liver, spleen, and the stomach. One of the method described is sitting, and also even earlier, our professors make them to walk a little bit in the ward, just here and there, steps, and make them sit and palpate also.
Is it relevant today? Dr. Shanoy, is this relevant today to even?
When it comes to the clinicals, to know the, otherwise it is not relevant.
Yeah. I mean, is in the clinical, in the exam, are they going to still expect students to know these things?
No. But at least the lateral position of the spleen, definitely.
Lateral is important. That's about the only thing I know about. That's all. Yeah.
Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, supine and lateral, they have to mention.
Yes, agreed.
Yeah,
agreed.
definitely.
Go on.
No, you should have done the renal angle percussion, not auscultation, I think.
What is the significance of that? What would he be? What would he have missed if he didn't do it?
The renal angle dullness, you look for the renal mass to rule out, that's all. It's an additional point.
But would that be applicable only when when it is bimanually palpable, or would it apply all the time?
No. One is bimanually palpable.
Yeah. So it's not bimanually palpable in this case.
Okay.
So yeah. Okay. Next one. Go on, please.
Systemic examination. Respiratory.
Now here you have to mention per-rectal examination. You would say you
Yes,
would
sir.
do a per-rectal examination here before you go into a systemic examination.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Chest expansion was similar on both sides. Normal vesicular breath sounds were heard bilaterally. Cardiovascular system S1 and S2 were heard. There was no murmur. CNS, the patient was oriented to time, place, and person. There was no focal neurological deficit. So provisional diagnosis, sir, this in my patient, a case of mass in left hypochondrium in 33-year-old male with no comorbidities, most likely to be moderate splenomegaly.
Right.
No, I have a question.
Yeah.
These days we find even undergraduates, giving this diagnosis like this. If there are varicose veins also, even lump abdomen, breast lump, anything. Case of blah blah blah, 30-year-old. Is it required at all? Why can't we say like carcinoma left breast, TNM stage, carcinoma right buccal mucosa, TNM stage? Or here, this is what it is. I have a differential diagnosis 1, 2, 3, 4. Do we require these vital statistics also? 33-year-old male and all these things. We were never taught all this because these days, students come up with this. I tell them, in a lighter vein, this is the medical diagnosis what you give. Give me a surgical diagnosis, I tell them. What do seniors feel? I don't know.
I think he labeled it wrong. I think if he says provisional diagnosis, I agree with you, Gabriel. But I think if he summarizes, then this is okay. I think if he in the end, if he summarizes the history and clinical findings in two lines and then gives a diagnosis, then this is okay. But if he says provisional diagnosis, I don't think he needs to mention all these things.
Ravi Shankar,
provisional diagnosis should be specific, that's all.
Yeah,
Ravi Shankar, if it's presenting a long case, definitely is supposed to summarize the history and come to a conclusion.
Yeah.
Either a differential diagnosis or diagnosis properly possible. If it is short case, okay, I mean, you can say straight away the diagnosis. So it looks like a more of a long case. So he has to summarize the case, then come to a conclusion.
Then you should put it as summary and
Then
you should
probably
give a
that.
professional
Yes.
diagnosis. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
That's
sir.
why I said he's made a mistake. That's what I said. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, Ajit, let me say this. Where is the diagnosis? It is like calling anemia a diagnosis.
Sir,
Is moderate splenomegaly a diagnosis?
It is like saying pain abdomen for evaluation. That is not your diagnosis.
This is a clinical finding, that's all.
It's a clinical finding. So I agree with the others. The correct thing for you to have done, I think, is to call this as case summary and give a provisional diagnosis, your first bet, and your differential diagnosis. Okay. So if I'm giving you a hint now. Okay, let us, you clinically you think it's a spleen. We agree with you. What is your diagnosis? The first diagnosis and differential diagnosis. And mind you, the next question I'm going to ask is, why do you say so? You have to justify your diagnosis. Please go ahead.
Sir, I think this is a lymphoma, sir, because this is a young male, but with no constitutional symptoms. Sir.
Okay.
And we may,
Okay.
there is
No. Let us first, your first thing is lymphoma.
Yes,
what are the other possibilities?
Leukemia, sir.
Yeah, lymphoreticular disorder would be the first thing. Instead of saying lymphoma, just say lymphoreticular disorder is your first thing. Okay.
Okay.
What is your differential diagnosis?
Then,
Can you stop sharing the screen?
yes.
Yeah. Go on. Keep thinking about it. Yeah.
Ajit, no? Ajit.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
See, you should always remember one thing in the examination that when you at a PG level, UG level, it does not matter the question of which one you tell first, which one you tell second, which one you tell third. That's all.
Yes.
Now, you are talking about an isolated lymphoma involving only the spleen, correct?
Yes, sir.
With absolutely no lymph nodes, nothing in the body, and no fever also, correct?
No fever. Yes, sir. No fever.
So you need to think in the mind, is the examiners accept that diagnosis? First question to you. So secondly, that means you need to get ready with the 2 or 3 diagnoses for a moderate splenomegaly in this patient and try to analyze in your mind or some. As far as the spleen is concerned, now there is no problem. You are lucky. This is a straightforward spleen. Let us put it that way.
Yes.
So now the question of in the order of enlargement or symptoms or whatever, how you put 1, 2, 3 diagnosis. So can I ask you now 1 or 2 or 3 differential diagnoses? Then maybe later you tell me, why did you put lymphoma first? Why not the second one or why not third one? Yeah, please.
Sir, first lymphoma, sir, then sarcoidosis, I would think, sir.
No. Don't be under the impression of give a clinical diagnosis of sarcoidosis and all that thing. So in the history, I asked you one important question. Does he have hematemesis? Why did I ask that question?
Portal hypertension, sir, because of esophageal varices.
Yeah, that is correct answer. Correct. Now, can you correlate this case to your diagnosis of a portal hypertension? If so, what type of portal hypertension? You understand the question?
Yes, sir. Left-sided portal hypertension.
So now you need to think that way rather than thinking in terms of amyloidosis or sarcoidosis or something like that. Now, similarly, can you think of something else now? Splenomegaly, moderate size. Yes, first is the reticular endothelial system you mentioned about lymphoma, leukemia, and all that thing. Yes, anything else? In the medicine books, you will find some 30-40 diagnoses of splenomegaly. So come out.
Sir, can we
isolated splenomegaly can give diagnosis of lymphoma? When there is no lymphoma.
It cannot be number 1, I think.
That's why I said, sir, ask him and thought out, let him think. The whole idea of they have to think.
What is the commonest cause in tropical countries?
Malaria, sir.
Malaria, sir. Malaria, filariasis.
But sir, there is no fever, sir. That's why I didn't say, sir.
Filariasis will not produce splenomegaly, man.
Leishmaniasis.
No,
Leishmaniasis.
let us be honest about this. I think we should have the most likely things. Lymphoreticular disorder, not necessarily lymphoma. It could be a leukemia. It could be a myelofibrosis. Lymphoreticular disorder would be the first. Tuberculosis is something you should think of in this country because that can really come out in many forms, and segmental portal hypertension, splenic vein thrombosis is one of the commonest things that can give you a moderate to massive splenomegaly. Think of these three things first.
Yes.
So I would say, if I would have given a case summary, we are getting on in time, and I would like to discuss investigation also. That's why I'm pushing it a little bit. I would say summary, just what you mentioned was perfect as a summary, and your diagnosis must be these three.
Yes.
Okay, must be these three, and then you will then go on to investigations. Okay, but my question to others here is the grading of spleen that some people describe important. They talk about grade 0 to 5. Does anybody ask for it?
They'll ask for this thing, mild, moderate. What is mild? What is moderate? What is massive?
So what is the definition? Shrikant, can you give us the definition?
Mild is up to 5 centimeters below the costal margin.
Okay.
Moderate is up to the level of the umbilicus.
Okay.
And beyond the umbilicus is massive splenomegaly.
All right. Okay. Is that generally agreed?
That is what Degurushi says.
Yeah, the Atchison's, that's why there are different variations. Atchison's grading is 3 to 7 and 7 and above. The whole idea of doing that moderate is because he has mentioned moderate. One of the differential moderate is a chronic myeloid leukemia because portal hypertension, definitely, and large cystic congenital cystic swellings, they all also.
Okay. So, okay, let's move on to investigations. Next 10 minutes at least, we should discuss that. Ajit.
I think the tropical splenomegaly should be the first diagnosis, is it not? Because he has no constitutional symptom to support this lymphoma.
What are the features of tropical splenomegaly?
I think that there are no symptoms, that's all. Actually, symptoms related to malaria, all those things.
No, malaria, sir, repeated malaria, sir.
Yeah.
But there is no fever. So
tropical splenomegaly, my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, is a manifestation of chronic malaria.
Yes.
This person has had no symptoms whatsoever. And, lymphoreticular disorder would be my first diagnosis. Segmental portal hypertension, because he may have a hypercoagulable state and he may have a spontaneous splenic thrombosis. That would be my second diagnosis, and a slightly distant third diagnosis would be tuberculosis. Systemic symptoms need not be there in any of this. So let us move on to the investigations. What would you ask for, Ajit?
Sir, complete hemogram I'll ask, sir.
Okay.
Then ESR, sir.
Okay.
Then coagulation profile.
Yes.
Then liver function test.
What is more important?
Peripheral
What is
blood
more
smear.
important? Yes. Okay.
Peripheral
Smear.
Peripheral
Yes.
smear. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Chest X-ray to see for any mediastinal lymphadenopathy.
Okay.
Then ultrasound of the abdomen. sir.
Say mediastinal widening. Don't say mediastinal lymphadenopathy. Be
Okay, sir.
careful how you speak and what
Yes.
you speak. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Mediastinal widening, sir, on
Okay.
chest X-ray.
Okay.
Then ultrasound abdomen, sir,
Okay.
to look for any free fluid status of the liver, spleen.
Okay.
And if we get this.
Okay, let me give you the answers for every one of them you asked. I agree with you. These were the things you would do in an order.
Yes.
His blood count were completely normal, no anemia, no abnormal cells. Peripheral smear is normal. ESR was 30. His, what else did you ask for?
LFT, sir.
LFTs were normal.
Why LFT, sir? When we are not thinking in terms of a liver, why LFT in this?
So one of the differential diagnosis was portal hypertension.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. One of the differential,
Mass,
it's more likely to be segmental, where you would expect the liver to be normal. But
Yeah.
I think it's justifiable to have a liver function test in this patient, and it was normal. Okay.
Sir, is he
Ultrasound.
sufficiently young to be considered for NCPF and DHO and things like that? Maybe. He's
Yes,
still
yes,
33. Yeah.
it's quite
Yeah.
possible.
Yeah.
Yes, he's okay, young enough for that. Yeah, okay.
Or
And his, okay. Ultrasound examination. What are the things that you look for in an ultrasound examination?
Sir, free fluid, sir, free fluid in the abdomen.
No, first of
Then-
all, you're having a big
yes.
mass. Yeah, talk about the
Yes.
mass. So it will tell you
the site of the
site,
mass,
yeah,
sir.
it will
Site,
origin of the
organ,
mass.
it is origin.
Yes.
Then
Yes,
extent of the mass, sir, on if it is compressing
yes,
anything, or
yes.
then any other lymph nodes involved.
Excellent. Okay.
Yes.
We're talking about lymphoreticular. Are there any other lymph nodes involved? Yes. You mentioned
Then-
about free fluid, correct?
Yes, sir. Then liver, sir. Liver.
Okay. Is the liver
If
enlarged?
there is,
Splenic vein.
yes.
Sorry. Yeah, go on. Anything else?
So isn't it thrombosis?
Status of splenic vein is very
Correct.
important.
Splenic
Yes, we have to
vein.
talk about.
Yes,
My list ends there. The site
Okay.
of the origin of the mass, spleen, or otherwise size, free fluid, aortic lymph nodes, whether
Yes, sir.
there is a subclinical enlargement of the liver with any change in echo texture, and whether there is splenic vein thrombosis or not. These
sir.
are the kinds of information you will get from this. This patient had a splenomegaly.
Sir, what about cavernoma, for this splenic cavernoma?
Thrombosis and cavernoma,
Okay.
I put them in one category
Okay,
because
okay.
cavernoma is the end result of a thrombosis.
Okay, right, yeah.
And his ultrasound suggested that there was a splenomegaly conforming to the the dimension that you are given, 15 centimeters by 10 centimeters. Splenic vein was normal. There were para-aortic nodes, and his liver was normal. No free fluid. What would you do next?
Sir, we have to get a histopathological diagnosis, sir.
Okay. Would you not want anything
we'll-
else to confirm what the ultrasound has said?
CT scan.
Yeah. So I will
Then,
run you through some of the CT scan pictures, and then you can give me a description of it later. I will flit back for the benefit of others. I'll come back to some of the slices that you want. Okay. So just let's spend 2 minutes on this. I'll just let you see this, absorb the things, and then I would like you to read it afterwards for me. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Just keep watching for the next 2 minutes or so. I will show you these again if you want to
Yes, sir.
see them. Okay. Just
Ajit, start talking now.
Yes, sir. Sir,
okay. I will come back to
Yes,
the. Go on. Go on.
sir, here you can see spleen is enlarged in size, sir.
Yeah.
In this view, only right kid.
First of all, when you read any investigation, what would you do?
This is craniocaudal view, sir.
All right. Even before that, when you're given a CT, are you seeing something there?
Contrast enhanced.
Contrast enhanced CT
So
of
this
the
is
abdomen and
oral
pelvis.
contrast,
Yes.
and you normally see, depending on when they do it, they don't do it without the IV contrast. They must have given it, but I don't see any opacification. But you must look for opacification of the aorta or a renogram to know whether there is IV contrast also. Okay.
Yes,
So
sir.
it is a contrast enhanced CT. Okay, go on.
Yes, sir. With enlarged spleen, sir.
Yeah.
Then in front of the, sir, in next pictures, lymph nodes can be seen, sir.
Yes. Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Then kidneys, both bilateral kidneys are normal.
Kidneys are normal. You don't see any free fluid. If you see a free
Yes.
fluid, it will be somewhere in this area.
Yes, sir.
The so-called hepatorenal renal space, a little further up. This is a little more caudal. But just saying the patient has splenomegaly is not enough. You must describe this. These are the lymph nodes, right?
Yes,
These are
sir.
the lymph nodes.
Lymph nodes.
This is the aorta. This is the vena cava.
Yes,
Kidney here, and these are the nodes. So
Yes.
how do you describe this? This is a good cut. Now tell me, describe where the normal parenchyma of the spleen is in this and what is abnormal.
Sir,
Just describe
sir, this is
where is the normal parenchyma in this spleen.
this one, sir. On the right side, sir, right inferior.
This,
for
you got it
this
right.
one. This one is right.
What I'm showing now, this is the
Yes, sir.
normal. Rest of it is
Right,
replaced
right.
by disease.
Yes, sir.
Okay, there is a different texture to it, or the a different Hounslow unit, as you call it. And what would be this?
Blood.
Blood
Hemorrhage.
or infarct?
Infarct.
This is infarct, sir.
It's an infarct.
Yes, sir.
So the
Yes.
normal spleen is almost pushed to a side here.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and
Yes.
so this is a sizable splenomegaly with areas of necrosis in nearly 90% of the spleen that is replaced by disease. And the
Yes.
disease could be
Lymphoproliferative disorder, sir.
yes, some kind of a lymphoproliferative disorder. That's the most likely thing. You can't rule out it. You cannot say it cannot be tuberculosis, but because these lymph nodes are involved, okay, it can happen in tuberculosis also. I'm not gainsaying that, but you would expect the lymph nodes of this size to show a degree of caseation if it is tuberculosis. So my first diagnosis for this would be a lymphoreticular disorder. Seniors to comment, please. Dr. Shanai?
Yeah, with this picture, the diagnosis has to be lymphoma as first diagnosis.
Yes.
In presence of these lymph nodes.
Yes. Yes. Gabriel?
Yes, sir. I think so, sir. I think it is.
Okay.
It is probably a massive splenomegaly. The whole spleen is replaced by the disease.
Yes. Yes.
Only
yes.
the superior pole and laterally little normal spleen is left. Otherwise, the whole spleen with the para-aortic lymph nodes, the celiac lymph nodes.
Correct.
So probably, I don't know. Yeah, here is
Ravi?
leukemias,
Yeah.
present
Ravi?
like this. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree, sir. In hindsight, should he have mentioned in clinical examination specifically there are no axillary, inguinal, or cervical lymphadenopathy?
Yeah. I mean, he clearly mentioned no lymphadenopathy,
No
and
lymphadenopathy.
I bought that. I think that is
Yeah,
good enough.
I think what Ravi said is right.
Yeah.
In a general examination, a patient like this, he should have said there is no generalized lymphadenopathy.
Yeah.
Where he just made a passing comment and said no lymphadenopathy. That yeah. So
Okay.
generalized.
One other information that I might have mentioned. Sorry if I missed. If candidate wants to give a diagnosis of chronic myeloid leukemia or lymphoma as first diagnosis, I expect them to look for bony tenderness, including sternum. That's a very important thing. Sternal
He
tenderness.
mentioned spinal tenderness, but not sternal tenderness.
Not spinal
Yes.
tenderness. So the sternal tenderness important. And of course, I'm not sure. After this, I think the bone marrow biopsy is also an important issue.
Yeah, correct. Now, how
Yeah,
do you go? How do you
students, please
proceed
note.
from here?
Yeah, students, please note what Dr. Rajgopal is saying. That you have examined the patient, think it over, go back and do these things. Routinely, we don't look for spinal tenderness. Routinely, we might not do sternal tenderness and spinal tenderness, but then go back, think once you have made a diagnosis, and go back and examine these things, and then you can mention. Yeah.
So the hematologists differ from whether you should do a PET CT, and if PET CT is normal, do you need to do a bone marrow biopsy? But I think I don't know whether what is the answer to that. A PET CT probably is good enough to see whether there is any other problem.
Yeah, I would prefer bone marrow as the first step before the PET CT, because PET CT will tell you only some hot spots or whatever if there are, but bone marrow will give you a definitive diagnosis. You can even do immunochemistry on the cells and get a definitive diagnosis. So between now, how do you progress from here? Ajit, I want to bring you back into this discussion. How do you progress from here? This patient has no peripheral smear abnormalities, nothing to suggest it is hematological. It is a massive splenomegaly with lymph node enlargement. What would be your next step?
Sir, I would get a CT guided biopsy of the this one, sir, because we have to have histopathological
Which one?
diagnosis.
You can't say this one. Which one? Lymph node, spleen. Would you put a needle into the spleen?
No, sir, never.
You would not. Okay.
Yes.
Anybody differs from that? No. So nobody would put a spleen. Even if it is, in this case, as you saw, most of it is replaced by disease. You can't really say it is a blood vessel rich area, because that area is very small. So some people may venture to put a needle into the diseased part of the spleen, but no, that is not the standard thing. Yes, you would get a CT guided FNAC or FNAB of the lymph node if you can reach it. Yes. What is the next step? Suppose they say, I can't reach these nodes. What would you do?
Sir, I had to put a scope in, sir.
Laparoscope.
Yes, sir.
Diagnostic laparoscopy.
Diagnostic laparoscopy.
Don't speak in the exam. I would like to put a scope in.
Scope in, sir. Yeah.
You do not know what will go in then. So be careful.
Yes, sir. Diagnostic.
Would you do a bone marrow first before?
Sir, yes, sir. After, yes, sir. First bone marrow, then CT guided biopsy.
Yeah.
If we cannot reach, then a diagnostic laparoscopy and biopsy of the lymph nodes.
I will tell you, the bone marrow is normal. There is no abnormality in the bone marrow. And the CT guided biopsy, the radiologist said, I would not venture into it. Now, would you do a laparoscopy as you said?
Yes, sir. Diagnostic laparoscopy and the FNAB.
And then do what?
Biopsy, man, not FNAB.
Then biopsy, yes, sir.
Why are you saying FNAB?
Are you very confident about reaching those nodes around the celiac axis in a laparoscopy?
No, sir. It will.
So what would you do then? Then would you do a laparotomy?
No, sir.
Okay, let us say that you have taken a biopsy, put a laparoscope in, taken a biopsy, and it tells you that it is a lymphoma. Okay?
Yes, sir.
Lymphoma. What would you do next?
Sir, radiotherapy, sir.
Yeah. If it's a lymphoma, you should then do get a immunohistochemistry, get the diagnosis. Now you must do a PET CT because you would like to know the real extent of the disease. One of the real indications for PET CT. We're doing it for all sorts of things, but one of the well-established indications for PET CT is a lymphoma. Okay, so do a PET CT, get a diagnosis, and then give chemotherapy. All right. Suppose you cannot reach the lymph node and you cannot get a diagnosis. What would you do?
Sir, we'll do splenectomy, sir, and then a laparoscopic assisted only we can do, sir. Then.
Oh, such a big spleen. You are a laparoscopic hero.
hand assisted, sir. HLS, hand assisted laparoscopy.
We will at MS level. I don't think you will be pushed for all this.
See, you should say splenectomy. Then the examiner will ask you, "What splenectomy? Will you do an open splenectomy?" Then you offer all these things.
Yeah.
Okay,
otherwise, it becomes debatable, and if the examiners don't agree, you are in soup.
Just say splenectomy. But I'm more interested. What is the justification of splenectomy in this case? Be it lymphoma, be it tuberculosis. What is the justification?
Sir, the pain will be alleviated, sir.
Okay. That's one. Is that all you're concerned about?
No, and we can get the histopathological diagnosis if we are not able to reach by the
All
lymph
right.
nodes.
All right.
Anything else? You have seen the CT scan. Anything else?
Look, such a big spleen, what will it do to the rest of the red
Sir,
cells and
tumor-
everything?
Tumor burden will
Hypersplenism.
decrease, sir.
You know, hypersplenism. A
Yes.
spleen like that will give you hypersplenism. I told him his hemoglobin is normal,
Yes.
but in the weeks to come or months to come, he will have hypersplenism.
Yes, sir.
All right. He will have
Yes.
anemia. He will have thrombocytopenia,
yeah.
pancytopenia. More important than hypersplenism, such a massive spleen with a degree of infarction. What are you worried about?
Thromboembolic event, sir.
No.
Infection, you go for it.
Infection, perhaps even more
Sir,
dangerous
rupture.
than that. Rupture.
Traumatic rupture.
Yeah. Not even traumatic, sometimes even spontaneous.
Okay.
So
Okay.
this is a constant fear of a massive or a large splenomegaly. So you are justified in doing a splenectomy in this patient.
Sir,
It
can I
also
comment, sir?
helps
Can
in
I-
effective chemotherapy.
Yes, you're debulking the disease.
Yes, sir.
That's another
Reducing
point.
tumor burdens.
Correct. Now I would like the seniors to comment about what I have said. Ravi.
Sir, I think the element of hypersplenism may be a bit far-fetched because this is a spleen replaced by disease. The normal functioning spleen element is less. So maybe the hypersplenism may not be that much of a problem. But other points that you made are absolutely right.
All right. Rajgopal.
In the hematological disorders, actually, there is hardly any indication to do splenectomy.
Right.
In this situation, as an exceptional case, because I think you gave a situation of we are not getting the diagnosis.
Yeah.
No peripheral nodes, no nodes in the axilla, nowhere.
Correct.
So then laparoscopy reaching the paraiotic nodes also may be difficult.
Yeah.
So maybe then the answer will come as a laparotomy only in this patient.
Correct.
Having gone into the laparotomy probably indicated. Otherwise, spleens up to even right iliac fossa, there are chemotherapy drugs are available now, even in hairy cell leukemia. In earlier days, I have done splenectomy for hairy cell leukemia, very large spleen up to the right iliac fossa, etc. So nowadays they have got good drugs which will control the disease. So that is my takes.
Yeah.
That's
When you get the diagnosis, if you get the diagnosis, I agree. If it's a lymphoreticular disorder, chemotherapy is the way to go. But when you have difficulty in diagnosis, you have so many other considerations, then I think splenectomy is a reasonable option in this case. Gabriel?
Sir, coming back to whatever we have said, yes, you will never needle the spleen because you can have bleeding, hemorrhage.
Yeah.
The other thing is, if at all you're thinking of lymphoma, even a CT-guided FNAC might give you some cells, but it will not tell you what type of lymphoma it is. It will not help the clinician. Pathologist will tell you abnormal cells are there, but you will not reach a diagnosis. So I would pin down and say I would go ahead with a laparoscope, diagnostic laparoscopic biopsy if possible.
Yeah.
If that is not possible, yes, go in for a laparotomy and do a biopsy.
Yeah.
If that is also, yes, and then splenectomy, as you have given various reasons, I would agree with that. And again, I would agree with Dr. Rajgopal and Ravi also, that there are so many good drugs which have come in, and probably that will shrink my only concern is that there is no spleen left, according to me, if you see the CT scan.
Yeah.
And it is such a huge spleen, definitely patient will be symptomatic. He or she will have a dull aching pain and she will be symptomatic. Probably as a candidate side, you can elevate the thing, plus debulking, and it will not do much harm to the patient if you have done a splenectomy. Either way you can argue.
Yeah.
Either way you can argue.
Yeah.
So there is no.
All right. Shrikant?
Yeah, I agreed, sir. But along with splenectomy, is lymph node biopsy required?
Good question. I would always do it. I would always do it because it's
That's
not
right.
difficult to get when you
Sir, sir, if given a choice, I will do a lymph node biopsy first, wait for the frozen section if available. And for some reason, if it comes as tuberculosis or something, I will avoid the splenectomy.
Yeah. Ramkrishna.
Yes, sir. I agree with what Dr. Rajgopal Shana said.
Right.
Mainly, it is the diagnostic.
Yeah.
Once we are not able to reach the diagnosis, then splenectomy is the only option we have.
Nuli, sir.
Sir, bone marrow was the first investigations I will do in this case, and splenectomy, yes, it's last option. We'll take a opinion of hematologist and surgeons, cancer surgeons also in this regard, and splenectomy should be the last option.
Ramesh?
Sir, owing to the scenario right now, not able to reach the diagnosis, splenectomy will be the optional, sir.
Yeah.
And diagnostic laparoscopy may not be feasible owing to the size of the spleen, sir. It better to we are unable to reach the diagnosis. I think splenectomy, and as you said, node biopsy once you are done the laparotomy.
Guru Shantappa sir, my apologies. I didn't realize you were in. Are you in?
I just forgot to change the name, sir. Just
Oh,
I was listening to you.
I'm very, very sorry. I would have involved you a lot more. But anyway,
No, it's all right, sir. It's all right, sir.
what I'll do is give you the last closing remarks, sir. Just hold on for a bit. You can summarize the whole thing and you know, sit in judgment about all of us. That will be a nice thing.
No need,
No,
sir.
no, I'm just pulling your
I will
leg.
add to your splenectomy. Part of
Shivram?
No, there are reports of ultrasound-guided splenic true-cut biopsies.
Yeah.
And I think in such cases, there is no harm in utilizing it.
Yeah.
So,
you know,
nowadays there are very good interventional radiologists. They are able to do it. Splenic abscess, we drain ultrasound-guided.
Yeah.
So in this case, spleen appears to be the normal structure is pushed up and it's full of tumor.
Correct.
I think it should be attempted than doing a splenectomy. If it comes lymphoma or anything, everything will disappear with the medical line of management.
Yeah. Have I missed any other seniors, please? If I have, please.
Hanumantaya, sir.
Hanumantaya, sir, please. Bani,
Yes,
sir. Yeah,
sir. I prefer to go ahead and do a CT guided lymph node biopsy.
Okay.
Come to a conclusion, then only we'll plan for a further treatment.
Yeah.
Definitely we can do a lot of CT guided biopsy for lymph nodes, retroperitoneal, para-aortic, all those things.
All right. Sir, closing remarks. Guru Shantappa, sir.
Sir,
Before Guru Shantappa sir comes in, I just want to say, see the candidates who are there now. See, all examiners have different views. Some are, similar views. Some are different views. So ultimately, you will be the winner because there is no consensus. So whatever you say, either way, whatever we have said, which is the truth. Okay, some people follow that, some people follow this. Ultimately, you will have the diagnosis and you'll be able to treat the patient.
All right.
If the tissue diagnosed lymphoma, will they ask the treatment regime also, the examiners?
They
will.
They will ask you because it's a common malignancy.
It's a common malignancy. Yeah. Guru Shantappa, sir, your closing remarks, please. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. This particular case where after clinical examination and imaging, we have found out that only spleen is involved and there are para-aortic nodes. And on imaging, liver appears absolutely normal, even clinically also. So this is a situation where we are suspecting a lymphoma or a lymphoproliferative disease involving only the spleen and the para-aortic nodes. In the clinical setup, this looks little unusual. Involvement of only spleen without involvement of a liver, it is less common, like NHL, what we are talking about. If it is a spleen involvement isolated in the form of lymphoma, what we say E component of lymphoma classification, invariably the other systems are involved. So to have a histological diagnosis, like what you have come out with the idea of doing a splenectomy, definitely it is accepted. I differ with the opinion of putting a needle into the spleen. If this answer is given by our students during examination, probably for them it will be very difficult to substantiate their investigation of putting a needle into the spleen. So it is better to hold on this as an investigation part at student level. So straightway, if they can mention like a splenectomy and maybe with a lymph node biopsy, they should substantiate lymph node biopsy because whole of the spleen is a necrotic tissue in the sense. So even if you do a splenectomy only and send the tissue and the pathologist says there is no spleen parenchyma to give the diagnosis, definitely will be in a lot of problem. So in this particular case, it is better to have a one node along with the splenectomy if we are doing splenectomy, so that you will have a histological diagnosis followed by immunohistochemistry to subclassify what exactly is the NHL, so that you can predict the prognosis and you can select the drugs. So if they can come out with this explanation in the examination, probably it will be accepted. And the second thing, involving spleen without liver is unlikely. So if they can substantiate putting a needle or doing a liver biopsy, even though on imaging it is not involved, if liver biopsy can give some diagnosis of lymphoma and immunohistochemistry, we can avoid all these procedures, doing splenectomy and a lymph node biopsy. So doing liver biopsy is a very safe procedure if coagulation profile is normal. So if it aids in the diagnosis, absolutely fine, sir, because this entity, spleen involvement without liver, is not very often in NHLs.
So thank you very much.
What I expect from the students, sir, as from the postgraduate, they have to like put here and there and try to substantiate. Yeah. And about the regimens, definitely it will be asked, sir, because most of us treat these, at least in our institute, we treat the disease. Even because sometimes medical oncologists may not be available. So they need to know what are the drugs, what is the dosage, and what are the common side effects. It is better if they know it.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the Ajit.
What is the stage of the disease now?
Sir, stage 1A, yes, sir. Stage 1A, because there are no constitutional symptoms, and S because splenomegaly is there, sir. And only one side of the diaphragm, the lymph nodes are involved.
Yeah, very good. Okay, I've just checked the chat box. I think we have answered all the questions. I'm sure all the students will agree that we've had an extremely fruitful discussion. We are very grateful to all the seniors who came in and given their inputs. I hope this continues so that all of us can collectively learn. Thank you very much for joining.
Last question, sir. What is the latest regime for non-Hodgkin's lymphoma?
No, we'll look at the books. We'll look up the books. So
CHOP is old one, I think.
R-CHOP.
Okay.
Rituximab is there, sir.
Yeah. All right. So thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Good night and keep safe.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you. Stay safe. Thank you very much.
Good night. Yeah.